17 videos in a career spanning 6 months and 2025 is already over. Well, I figured it'd be nice to have ourselves a little stroll down memory lane through each video I covered, with some of the best moments hand-selected by yours truly, and a fair few already mentioned by some previous commenters. Please enjoy this retrospective.
There's one person round here might be able to help you. The captain of the Jammy Dodger.
Fortunately for this movie's 76-minute runtime, this random food vendor knows exactly the person Roddy needs to find to get out of there.
Yes, because as he mentions in the dialogue that you cut out, she's a regular at this particular stall.
Shady customer. The captain of the Jammy Dodger.
So, I hand Roddy over to the Toad and claim the reward, then we're all sitting pretty for the rest of our lives.
Rita doesn't agree with this plan, but is, of course, talking about it in the most incriminating way possible so that an eavesdropping Roddy misunderstands and runs away. Look, I know movies got a conflict, but since they make up in about 5 minutes, what was the f***ing point? Why can't we just get along?
Clearly you don't understand that movies have to have conflict, because you just said that this was unnecessary since they make up soon after. Conflict happens for a reason. Without conflict, there'd be no drama. It would just have Roddy washing the dishes like he planned to, and the scene would just be boring as the family has a conversation in the kitchen while the guest does the washing up. Who would want to see that?
Todd is holding clothes in his left hand before he slips, and when it cuts to the shot behind him, he's no longer holding the clothes.
I'm going to stop you right there, because you say he didn't drop them, but the shot you show when you say that actually shows the clothes on the floor. So yes, he did drop them, Jer.
You don't even want to f*** with that Mac Daddy.
The idea that Candyman will be intimidated by the Grim Reaper enough to refer to him as a Mac Daddy you don't want to f*** with is disappointing.
No, bad Jeremy, sinning this line.
Did this movie just cut from Terry being obliterated by a bus and her blood on everyone's faces to Alex calmly enjoying a drink with an antacid in it? Because it did, and what the f*** movie?
That's because the crew behind this movie added 40 extra seconds of footage due to the fact that test screen audiences took so long to relax after the hit that they'd missed the next line of dialogue. Even if you don't believe me, you might believe producer Craig Perry.
The audiences for the first few previews went so bananas for that moment that we had to add length to the shot of the Alka-Seltzer in the glass afterwards, just for them to sort of like get their sea legs and get their nerves settled down so they could listen to the dialogue in the next scene. It was one of the most gratifying moments I've ever had making movies.
When I was a kid, like 6 or 7.
Skip.
So, backstory into how Clea became the way she did and her experiences with death isn't interesting to you? And yet you were asking questions about it earlier? To quote Mr. Potato Head, did you take stupid pills this morning?
You never want to get in there and, help them out and show them how to surf and spend some time with the kids?
No, I don't want to do that.
Tank would absolutely shred at CinemaSins.
Because he destroys the hopes and dreams of kids? Yeah, I'd say he fits in there really well.
I'll take you on anytime, anywhere!
Hey, the 80s called and asked if they could have their new guy takes on the bully in insert random contest here trope back.
Oh, hey, Jeremy. David Spade called. He wants his joke back.
Dude, have you seen my friend Cody?
Discount Hey here continues to try and milk as many laughs as possible from acting like he's wasted. And nothing else. That's the entire bit.
I mean, why else did it look like he has the munchies? And this is from him passed out at the thought of Cody bleeding, not coming down from a high. Okay, so admittedly I've missed this sin in my previous rebuttal until Captain Vader mentioned it in my comments. So thanks for the heads up, mate. And I also heard Moonbase and CinemaSins covering this in their videos. So I too will add that, much like with the Cloudy with a Chance Meatballs video I covered, Jeremy fails to realise that Moana, the movie that features the chicken Hey, was released 9 years after Surf's Up, making that sin make less sense than it did previously.
It looks like Evans is gonna take out the chicken!
Writers believe that the rules of a surf competition would somehow incentivize this kind of behavior to the extent that Bob Evans would actively...
Wait, ho, stop right there. What did you just say?
To the extent that Bob Evans...
Bob Evans? Dude, his name is Tank. How in the wobbly blue hell did you get that wrong?
I'll make you proud.
I know you will.
He says this instead of saying you already have. That's a dad fail right there.
Aw, did someone not have his daddy tell him he was proud of him when he was younger? Also, he's talking about this personal achievement, and meanwhile, he says this at the end of the movie.
But you gave me the most important thing. You believed in me.
From the second you were born.
Back off! Back off! He's got his own dreams that won't come true.
Wow, this movie made me laugh. You might think I'd remove a sin, but no. It took 43 minutes for a movie co-starring Robin Williams to make me laugh. That's a sin.
Sinning Robin Williams? God damn, you're heartless.
This movie can't get analogies right at all. Here they're using buffers to stand in for a personal massage, but a buffer isn't massaging anything. It's literally just making shinier. This is the laziest movie since Brown Bunny, and that movie made you watch a car washing and a blowjob in real time.
Okay, what is it with you and road-based erotica? This is the second time I've had to cover something like that in this series. Also, you call this movie lazy, but you never give an explanation as to why it's lazy. Your evidence here is inadmissible, and if this continues, I'm going to hold you in contempt.
Can't fly in rain. Can't fly in rain.
Not only does he believe this wives' tale bull, but he's also literally flying in the rain while chanting this mantra.
Convenient that you didn't include the part where raindrops land directly on his wings when you say that. I bet you did that just because you know it would discredit your sin. But since we're here, I'm just going to point out that this isn't an old wives' tale because he gets hit by 2 droplets later, which affects his ability to fly, causing him to crash land in Vanessa's apartment.
This is your queen? That's a man in woman's clothes. That's a drag queen.
Instead of pointing out the dated humor of a movie from way back in 2007, I'd like to submit the question of how a fucking bee knows what a drag queen is.
Crikey, this is a turnaround. Especially when Birdman pointed out this in your Lion King video.
Does Simba one day get pulled over for having a transvestite hooker in his car?
Oof, talk about a dated video. I'm not one of them cancel culture types, but even I wouldn't have touched that one in 2015.
So that already sounds mighty hypocritical of you. Or would be if you actually addressed it properly. Normally it would be 10 sins for an inappropriate comment cliche, and I'm not one of those cancel culture types. But my lord, that was a boundary overstep, so let's just make it 75. As for how would Barry know what a drag queen is, my bet is, again, bees saw what humans were doing and adopted some of their behaviours, which might include, well, drag performances. Also in that photo, Barry could clearly tell since the queen had a buzz cut and some form of stubble, so it would be easy for him to figure it out.
Excuse me, barmaid. I'm afraid you brought me the wrong offspring.
It's like someone at Pixar just got drunk, watched this movie, swapped a gender or two, and Brave was born.
While I must give you major props for admitting that How to Train Your Dragon came first, I have to stop you while you're ahead and say that even if there's a parent-child conflict and Scottish accents in both movies, HTTYD and Brave are not the same, merely due to the use of magic in Brave and the inclusion of Norse mythology and dragons in How to Train Your Dragon. Not to mention the fact this is in more of a Scandinavian region, so the Scottish accents were already slightly anachronistic, as you pointed out earlier.
So, I can see why people are afraid of smaller things like snakes and spiders, but why would a dragon have any reason to be afraid of eels, ever?
Well, like earlier, Captain Vader covered this, but I'll add a little more context in here. Eating eels can make a dragon sick, giving it eel pox, as we see in an episode of the TV series Defenders of Berk. So naturally, given this, dragons would want to avoid eating them as opposed to ship? Hang on. No, that's not right. So naturally, given this, dragons would want to avoid eating them as opposed to sheep, fish, chicken, and dragon nip.
While Hiccup rides this dragon, I can't help but think, discount Atreyu and Falkor.
First off, never-ending story called, and they want their characters back. Second, I can't tell if you're being racist or not due to the fact that Falkor is white and Toothless is black. Huh. Maybe you are. Thirdly, not removing at least one sin for this epic test flight sequence. That's worth a few extra.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but this dragon competition arena is even more deadly and unsafe than the one in Goblet of Fire.
Truth be told, I haven't seen Goblet of Fire yet, but from what I heard from Captain Vader...
You're saying that as if in Goblet of Fire, that dragon didn't escape and chase Harry.
At least this movie keeps them in for the Trial of Flame.
Oh yeah? Well, you know what this is? The size of your brain. No, wait. That's much better.
Like you've ever seen my brain. Come on, Hook.
What? He started it.
And it's time for a story problem, boys and girls. If a Death Vision car leaves an intersection traveling at 60 miles per hour, and a Death Vision truck passes that same intersection exactly 3 minutes later, how fast would that truck have to be going to pass that car on the expressway exactly 1 minute and 43 seconds later? I'm gonna guess 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Screw the ever-living daylights out of you. This scene got millions of people to rethink driving behind a log truck on the road. You even removed a sin for it. But I guess now that it isn't a vision, you're clear to sin it? All for an absolutely useless question? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and have a pigeon in your cornflakes? Because that's the only reason I could come up with for you sinning probably one of the best disasters in a Final Destination movie.
Did you see that?
See what?
Pigeons.
Pigeons.
It's a sign.
Death waits until Kimberly has the signs conversation with Clear to start sending other people's signs her way, instead of slyly leaving them in the path of the actual person next on the list like usual.
Well, if you let the scene play further, she explains that it's for Nora and Tim Carp.
And Officer Burke will immediately go along with what Kimberly has told him, even though it makes no sense and I'm not even sure he knows who Clear is.
Wait, what? Now you're brushing over the explanation and making up some rubbish about Burke not knowing who Clear Rivers is? Even though he brought her up to the survivors in the interview room? Did I just take Vader's crazy pills?
If they were a car outperforming the others like this, especially at the end of the race, then the race wouldn't ever be in question. In other words, bull.
Would you say the same thing about Usain Bolt or Novak Djokovic? Everyone has their own skills to apply to different sporting events, like Luke explains in his video on the subject.
For me, I did running races in high school, and one skill that I had was that I'd conserve my energy and speed up when nearing the finish line.
Also, different training regimens, like I talked about in the Surf's Up video.
So, remember the movie Doc Hollywood? Michael J. Fox played a doctor who had a big interview with a plastic surgery office, and he had car trouble and got stuck in a small town and saw Julie Warner's boobs. This movie is Doc Hollywood dressed up as an animated race car flick and no boobies, unless you count that headlight scene, which I don't.
Mate, seriously, the shower's right there. Take it. Extra cold. Oh, and while we're at it, give Michael J. Fox his movie back. He is not happy.
Lightning kicks this can, which causes a noise, which leads him to investigating and finding out Doc's racing past, which makes that the most plot-convenient can that ever existed in a movie.
Oh, for the love of Chrysler. Everything in a movie is plot convenient. If it wasn't, it would be incredibly random and not enjoyable at all.
It's over. While the world's been trying to find you, Dinoco has had no one to woo.
Lightning's been gone for nearly a week, and the damage is done, and he already knew Dinoco was wooing Chick, but is suddenly motivated to get that stupid sponsorship again because his agent tells him this stuff he already knows.
Fair point, but why in the name of Jensen Healy are you sinning the UK release? The clip you're using has Jeremy Clarkson, formerly of Top Gear and now of Clarkson's Farm fame, while the US version has Jeremy Piven.
Get out of radiation stinks now, or Dinoco is history, seriously.
Did this Pixar movie really need Jeremy Piven doing his entourage agent shtick? They really made this movie from spare parts, didn't they? Pun intended.
Hang on, what in the name of Enzo Ferrari is happening here? Now you've just said Piven, even though it's Clarkson in your video. Either I'm sitting a man with the personality of a Lamborghini Murcielago, ergo he's crazy, or I'm taking Vader's crazy pills again.
But I didn't win.
Lightning, there's a whole lot more to racing than just winning.
Name one thing.
Teamwork.
All this time, I've been underneath Paris?
Movie inadvertently writes the most salacious Gilmore Girls fanfiction ever.
I'm gonna need some help for this one here. Luke, Vader, come over for a sec. Jeremy says something random cliche.
Jeremy says something random cliche.
Jeremy says something random cliche.
There are only two ways to get first pick. Grow it yourself or bribe a grower.
Actually, you guys accidentally witnessed LaRue's weed deal.
Sacre bleu, Monsieur Scott. That greenery in the crates is not the devil's lettuce. It is just regular lettuce.
Wake up!
Even in a movie about an English-understanding, Michelin star-worthy rat chef in Paris, this linguini doesn't wake up crap is asking too much of my suspension of disbelief.
Okay, I already mentioned this in a comment on Captain Vader's video, but I feel like half of it fits here too. Is Jeremy really that picky and choosy over where he suspends his disbelief? Even in a world that isn't real? Like seriously, the rats can speak. Remy has dreams of being a chef, and Linguini's arms can be controlled by the manipulation of a couple of strands of hair. But this is where you get lost?
Now, dragons used to be a bit of a problem here, but that was 5 years ago.
Everyone was terrified of dragons, and they constantly burned down the village. Yes, that was a bit of a problem. But they domesticated dragons in only 5 years? Come on.
Having the same count as usual, Jezza? Also, you say only 5 years, as if that isn't 1,825 days between Hiccup defeating the Red Death until now, plus 1 or 2 leap years. You must have gotten it confused with 5 months.
Then it's a good thing I brought a challenger.
You can totally kill Drago right now, by the way.
How? Force feed him her staff, shove the end out of his rear, and roast him on a spit? Fun to think about, but it won't work. Also, the sin counter disappears for a brief second. Another editing mistake! And I know I'm not immune from them either, but they're $1 million production company, and I'm just a one-man show.
Also, if they don't listen to anyone, how are you able to ride them and guide them where they need to go? They'd be perfectly content staying back on Pandora, right?
Oh, for the love of Thor!
This is the 11th Thor Forsaken pop culture reference in this damn video. There's gonna have to be an updated sin count now.
And why does the hologram camera pick up the glass and coaster but nothing else about their surroundings? And how did all these busy...
Nobody cares! The story of the internet billionaire's rise to power is expected to be this award season's hot ticket.
Why?
Mock away, but I can imagine a movie showcasing Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos' rise to fame would still be a massive hit at the box office. Also that naff chuckle. Vader to the rescue again, because one thing I forgot about when writing this sin previously was that The Social Network exists. A movie about Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. So there's that.
You know, I think if I woke up tied to some train tracks and I knew I was in an organization that liked to f*** with people, I might take this almost too calmly. In other words, the fact that you've been tricked so many times eventually leads you to the conclusion that you're not in a situation you think you are, and therefore the results of such a test are skewed.
Objection misleading. For one, you brought up Eggsy jumping out of a plane with a parachute that he didn't know was fully functional. If his parachute actually wasn't working, or if no one gave him any help, he legitimately could have died there. And in another example, we have the flooded room from earlier. If this was realistic and the U-bend was flooded by the pressure, no one would have survived in that room. And if not that, then it sounds like you're just saying that this was something obviously set up by the Kingsman agents, which wasn't actually obvious to the recruits or to the audience. Hell, when I first watched this, I thought he was incredibly close to death.
Before I start this video, I want to make it clear that I like Luke Doherty's videos.
Actually, his name is pronounced Luke Doherty.
Mispronouncing Luke's last name yet again. It's pronounced Donut Tree.
Okay, that was funny.
I also want to point out that I would appreciate if someone made a CinemaSins video of this video to see how far we can keep this chain going.
Please don't. At this point, we've already reached CinemaSins, sins territory. I'm pretty sure if this mania goes any further, a black hole will open and destroy the universe.
I'm going to remove a sin because that was a really funny joke. I mean, come on, that's such a silly idea. There's no way that would actually happen in real life. Wait, what's that noise?
I wouldn't worry about it. Mostly a blip anyway.
When you were working on your continuation of the CinemaSins Toy Story 2 chain.
Oh dear.
Right, so I want to make it extra crystal clear to everybody watching, including whoever will inevitably send this video, that this sin was a joke.
CinemaSins only partially cropped out Luke Skywalker's subtitles from the video.
Huh, I didn't even see that. Might be a sin on me then. But to be fair to CinemaSins, one-person channels like us tend to struggle since we're not editing pros.
Okay, boy, to the yard sale! Yeah!
What? That dog understands English? Or you already taught it the command for to the yard sale? I mean, I can suspend my disbelief with the best of them, but you're stretching it here, man.
Well, why don't you just suspend your disbelief altogether and accept that this is a fictional movie?
Come on, dude. Do you really think Jeremy is capable of suspension of disbelief? If he was, then none of our channels would exist.
True, and to answer your question, I know that he doesn't do it.
CinemaSins was making a joke here. The real sin is that he shouldn't have increased the sin counter after making the joke.
If I were to keep the sin counter the same after making a joke, then that would imply that the number of sins has any actual meaning whatsoever, which it definitely does not.
I agree, and to demonstrate this fact, I added every sin total across your entire channel and added that number to my sin counter. So here's 1,774.47 sins.
In this industry, we have a term for that. It's called padding the sin count.
Does that mean Wendy had that entire premonition after she sat down in the coaster?
Whoa, hold the phone. This is the only time you seen this occurrence? After the Flight 180 premonition, Alex woke up in his seat to Krista and Blake asking him to switch seats, just like he heard in the vision. And Kimberly snaps out of her premonition after stopping on the entryway to Route 23 just when Dano asks, first year of driving? And yet this is the only awakening from a vision sin that you sin? Well, that's inconsistent as all hell. And I'll be keeping a sharp eye on your FD4, FD5 and Bloodlines videos from now on, just to see if you sin Nick, Sam and Iris for their vision awakening times.
What if, for example, the last in line were to make the utilitarian choice, kill themselves?
Well, in Final Destination 2, this is exactly what we find out Alex Browning from the first Final Destination did.
Hold your f***ing horses! Did you just say Alex killed himself? If you actually watched the first movie, you'd know he was actively trying to avoid death. And in the second film, if you actually read the article that Burke was reading, it says that Alex was bludgeoned over the head by a stray brick. That was not self-inflicted. However, if you said this about Eugene's attempt in Final Destination 2, then your argument would have had more legs than this. But since you didn't, then lied about the plot lines, I'm going to have to give you a massive total here.
The selections on this dial go by very fast, so let's play a game of Sinned or Saved. Through the miracle of frame-by-frame technology, let's see if Flint's settings match the food he's producing. If they don't, the movie gets a sin, but if they do, we'll remove one.
Okay, I'm game. Let's begin.
Flint first turns on the MSG and dairy buttons, flicks the switch to fried, depresses the spicy button, turns the sour up, turns the pepper down, or salt up, or whatever the hell that faulty knob does, adjusts the dressing on the side dial, presses several of the temperature buttons for some reason, and sets the final switch to crunchy.
Yep, all listed down here. Telling me it's a regular fast food item.
So we're looking for something with MSG and dairy that's spicy, sour, salty, fried, and crunchy.
Ah yes, that narrows it down nicely.
And the answer is... cheeseburger. Even if you count the lettuce as crunchy, which, nice stretch, Elastigirl, the fried and sour just don't add up. Consider it sinned.
Objection, improper opinion. For one, CinemaSins Land doesn't seem to have pickles on their menus. So keep that in mind when asking for a hot dog with relish, or a burger with the lot, because that would explain the sour dial on the cheeseburger settings. Secondly, Jeremy seems to have never cooked a burger before, as some patties are fried in a pan, specifically when you're making a homemade one. Thirdly, unfair sin. So for this, I'm going to have to just give you 2 here.
It had been almost 10 years since Mom died.
Because all animated films have to dead parent in the first 10 minutes. It's in the Constitution.
That's not what this pile of evidence shows. 101 Dalmatians, Brave, Encanto, Flushed Away, Hercules, The Incredibles, Moana, Mulan, Ponyo, Sleeping Beauty, Spirited Away, Tangled, and Zootopia. Just because a large selection of films have had protagonists with 1 or 0 parents doesn't mean the opposite hasn't been attempted.
What are you doing?
Well, I tried to help everybody.
Look in the sky, it's a giant bag of potato skips.
To borrow from a commenter on Luke's video, more like go on Kamoli.
Now hold the phone here a second. Having fortune cookies drop only on the Great Wall of China is racist as hell.
Hold on, why is this the only instance of localized food you sin? What about the bagels, hot dogs and mustard crushing New York citizens? The hot tea over London? Sushi over Japan? Okay, that scene doesn't exist. But this isn't an issue of racism, it's food localization. But to be fair to CinemaSins, one-person channels like us tend to struggle since we're not editing pros.
Court of CinemaSins fails to understand that small criticisms can be valid, Part 3, in 3D.
Oof, talk about dated, since all the cinemas are about IMAX now. But the point I was trying to make here is that CinemaSins, along with you, me, and the rest, are allowed to have mistakes, while we only single out CinemaSins themselves for their mistakes, like pointing out editing and proofreading errors in their captions and timers. Mostly because, like I said previously, we're just single-person channels, and they're a multi-million company.
I'm gonna take off the 5,000 sins that I gave you earlier.
I'm gonna remove 1 sin for giving me more sin removals than any other one of your videos.
Further proof that the sin totals don't matter.
Dude, I gave CinemaSins over 8 billion sins in my previous addition to the chain. If you still think I believe that the number of sins has any meaning, I'm gonna have to take some extreme measures.
I don't want to.
Ouch! I don't know if I can come up with a retort to that. Oh, great. I'm in hell.
Feel free to make a CinemaSins video on this video.
Done!
Hey, remember what you said in your video about padding the sin count for no reason? Yeah, don't do it.
Always lovely to see someone else following their own advice. But the main point here is that I only give CinemaSins a hard time for padding the sin count in a similar vein to the Birdman, whereas the rest of us don't have to follow that rule. In fact, the popcorn gag I made in your video was to say it's wrong and purposefully go against that belief by giving you 10 sins. If I was being serious, I would have just stuck to 1. And if I was really petty, I would have given you 20. But I'm not like that unless someone deserves it. So I'll be nice and remove the 5 sins I'd given you over the course of this video. But then I'll add 1 back for each person who ended up down here with us.
Dean Hartscrabble is one of the few monsters that gets to wear clothes.
He says, while showing Professor Knight standing right behind her. Not to mention there's the Raws, Eeks, Pinks, Jocks, Hiss, the Greek Council, and... Wait a minute, I've said this already.
Shouldn't a monster universe have a human creature on their Lisa Frank-style notebooks? A unicorn griffin thing probably lives out there somewhere.
Is that really a question you need answering? Do you really need one of us to hold your hand through all of this? Well, this is not something the movie needs to explain to you, since it isn't important.
Oh, a ladybug!
For those of you keeping score at home...
Wait, whoa, don't tell me. You're going to point out that ladybugs, like silverback gorillas, exist in the monster universe. Well, have I got news for you.
Apparently you only get caught in this game if you're just so shitty at hiding it looks like you're not even trying, because everyone knows what Sully looks like, and him lying on the ground like a bear rug should not be a good hiding place, but it did require a small amount of effort.
Okay, but that's just the monsters. Humans wouldn't know who Sully is, and the point of the challenge is to hide in plain sight, i.e. blending in with the furniture. That's why the Hiss sorority failed the challenge, because they didn't choose good hiding places and couldn't stay still long enough to not be noticed. Sully, acting like a bearskin rug, worked splendidly. The real sin should be that, given Mike is only green, he shouldn't have been able to blend in as a globe.
Careful, Mr. Sullivan. I was just warming up to you.
Does warming up to him include expelling him from school?
No, because that wasn't Hardscrabble's decision to do so. Sure, she may have said to Mike that if he lost the scare games, he would have to leave the university, and told Sully to be off campus by tomorrow after he owned up to the cheating. But as Roz mentions the night before they had to leave,
that was for the university president to decide. I'll be watching you, Jeremy. Always watching.
Even the vegetables don't like him.
Yeah, I hear the eggplant emoji even refuses to show up on the selection board every time Scrooge tries to sect Belle.
Oh no. Oh, please don't bring the idea of Gen Z Christmas Carol into my head. I already cringe enough as a 25-year-old from half of the words that they all make up.
And I didn't mean to fall behind in the payments. Lord knows it being Christmas and all.
Follow me here a moment. Who borrows money from a known asshat like Scrooge? Only the desperate, I guess. Those who can't go anywhere else. Which must mean he either has the best rates, or he's one of the only guys in town loaning to really poor people, which, ding ding ding. So then, if he's loaning to people that can't pay, he knows eventually they'll default. And maybe he can seize something if they took a specific loan out, like a home loan or a carriage loan. But even a home from someone like that would not be desirable to Scrooge. And why is there never any time given to his side real estate business that somehow resells?
Nobody cares! Nobody cares.
Dude, I obviously love this movie, but it takes way too long to miss Piggy, and barely Kermit's at all.
Well, if you love it so much, why are you sinning it? Way-ho! Kermit, how did you get in here? Editing magic? Oh, of course. How foolish of me.
Bob Cratchit, I've had my fill of this.
Jesus, he just handed out gifts to half the city while singing a happy song, but Scrooge takes extra time to with Bob specifically before he unzips his Christmas spirit.
And that just about wraps it up for 2025. So thanks everyone so much for watching. Be prepared for more content in the future. Stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you guys next time.